Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. A fight is brewing between Elizabeth Warren and Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman. She is going after him pretty hard here, and let's find out what she is saying. Check this out. She said he has two jobs. One is to deal with monetary policy and one is to deal with regulation. He has failed at both. That's pretty strong language. She also continues, look, I don't think he should be chairman of the Federal Reserve. I have said it as publicly as I know how to say it. I have said it to everyone. Now, Warren is on the Senate Banking Committee, and she basically is saying this is because she feels like Jerome Powell has been light on regulations, and she's fearing that there could be a run on the banks because maybe a lot of mid-sized banks have taken on more riskier investments. So basically, after the '08 crash, we had a new regulation called Dodd-Frank that was supposed to strengthen the banking system. By doing that, basically, it made it harder for banks to be more careless with the way they invest, right? So the threshold to be on a too big to fail bank was $50 billion at the time. So if a bank had over $50 billion, they had to follow the Dodd-Frank rules, right? The ones that the Congress passed. But then during what Elizabeth Warren is complaining about is that during the Trump administration, when Trump went ahead and selected Jerome Powell to be the Fed chairman, they decided to, with Congress, they decided to move it from $50 billion to $250 billion. So now only Dodd-Frank affects the bigger banks and not the smaller banks. And what we saw in recently in California with the Silicon Valley Bank is really spooking some people. But another thing that Elizabeth Warren complains about is that she doesn't like him, period, right? She doesn't like that he has to raise the interest rates because we have high inflation. Because at the end of the day, obviously, when we start seeing layoffs across the country, the people that get hurt the most are the poorer people. And she, is looking for their vote. She is one of their advocates. So what I feel like she's not portraying in some of her arguments is that if we have high inflation, is going to destroy everybody's life, right? And yes, if it does happen and we get like hyperinflation and everything just becomes super duper expensive, poor people would be affected the most at that time. So although I agree that it sucks to raise the rates because it's going to create a crash, it sucks. But what would come farther down the line would be so much worse than what we're would experience right now. Look, we have really low employment. The prices of things are going up and up. People are making more money, and it's making the economy red hot. And the Federal Reserve is super scared, and that's why they've been raising the interest rates, because they really want to bring down inflation. And by doing that, it's going to create some crashes in our economy. I mean, literally, that's what they're trying to do. Now, I don't feel like she should have it both ways, right? During COVID, she was signing on to all the, printing or more money and give more money to people, which, at that time, if you're going to shut down businesses, and we're in a position where we could print out money and, subsidize everyone, then okay, fine. Let that be the whatever, right? That's good, in some ways. But you can't also, when we start getting high inflation and everything's going crazy, now you can't criticize the chairman for, raising rates too high too, right? It's like you can't be for one thing and then when it causes a problem down the line, then criticize them for trying to fix that problem that was created from printing too much money originally. So it's gonna get tough. That's why everyone keeps saying, "Oh, there's a crash coming. There's a crash coming," and there's no crash because we have not really tamed inflation. Inflation is raging, and if we go into summer, that with summer months coming, that housing prices are only going to go up during the summer. So with now the freaking Feds now fearing that more banks could collapse as a result because some of these banks took out riskier investments when interest rates were low. Now everyone's kind of scared. Now I will say that where I do agree a little bit is about the regulations. Look, there's certain industries that I think, should be set aside to making a lot of money, right? Definitely. Like, you want to be able to be like really bullish with certain things, like, I'll give you an example, like Apple, right? Like, they make computers. You want them to be very bullish, entertainment, things like that. But sometimes there's some industries that we really have to be careful. And one of them would be banking, because banking ends up being tied up with so much of the entire economy. You might be, if one sector fails, like, it shouldn't bring down the entire economy because, maybe that bank was invested heavily into that sector. So I think banks should be regulated a little bit, or maybe, so we don't have these catastrophic crashes, right? Remember what happened with '08. Banks, had very low regulations. They were lending out to everybody and everybody. Everyone was getting a loan. It made everything go up. People couldn't pay the loans back. And then we had a huge collapse, which brought down literally every sector of our economy. And that was basically created by the banks. So at the same time, you want to make banks competitive because you do want them to stay in business. But, it's one of those things where it's probably would be good for banks to be more of a boring kind of, makes a little bit of money, not crazy stuff. But, that's not the way the system is set. Banks, like especially this bank that just collapsed, Silicon Valley. It was a rich people's bank, right? It was the type of bank that would go out and get money, from big time investors, people in Silicon Valley that were just richer than rich, to invest in startups. It's a fairy tale right there in itself. And then they used basically low interest rates to, finance, all their, their fun activities. And then when interest rates went up, party was over. And, at the end of the day, it's how much you make, how much did you lose, and were you green or red? And unfortunately, they were way in the red. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish this video. Things are heating up. Oh, man, it's going to get crazy. But I can't even tell you right now if it's going to go up or down, because who knows what these knuckleheads are all going to do. All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.